Something about that moment stayed with me. I am talking about the sheer, unbridled aggression we witnessed when Curtis Ashford physically assaulted Isaiah Gannon. If you ask me, the violence of that encounter felt entirely disproportionate to the official narrative we have been fed. We were led to believe that this was merely a clash of egos, a husband's bruised pride, or perhaps a flare-up of tension stemming from misunderstandings. But when you look closely at Curtis's eyes during that altercation, it wasn't just anger. It was a visceral, desperate kind of rage. It was the look of a man who is not just defending his territory, but desperately trying to obliterate a threat to his very existence. At first, it didn't seem important. It just looked like typical soap opera, machismo. But the more you replay that scene, the more you realize that Curtis wasn't just hitting a rival. He was trying to silence a ghost that is haunting his marriage. We have all been following the thread of this complicated dynamic for weeks. We watched as Portia Robinson's stress reached a boiling point, culminating in a fierce confrontation with Jordan Ashford that ultimately sent her into a difficult, premature labor. We saw the birth of a beautiful baby boy, a moment that should have been pure joy. Yet, the atmosphere in that hospital room was thick with an undeniable, suffocating tension. When Isaiah interrupted Portia and Curtis's supposed bonding moment with their newborn, Curtis's reaction was not just annoyance. It was explosive. And then we watched Portia's incredibly erratic behavior. One minute, she is telling Curtis that she wants absolutely no direct contact with him, insisting he get all updates about their son through the hospital doctors. The next minute, she is suddenly considering changing her official testimony to save Curtis from a stint in Pentonville, framing it as a gesture of goodwill and a thank you to Jordan. I keep coming back to that drastic pivot. Why would a woman who just demanded total distance from her husband suddenly risk her own moral standing to keep him out of prison? The official story tells us that she simply doesn't want her son's father behind bars for the first 8 months of his life. But when you look at Portia's eyes, you don't see forgiveness. You see exhaustion. You see panic. You see a woman who is calculating every single move she makes on a chessboard where the stakes are life and death. This brings us to the shadow beneath the story. The narrative we are all supposed to accept is that the DNA test confirmed Curtis Ashford is the biological father of this new baby. We are supposed to believe that Isaiah is just a lingering, annoying presence from Portia's past, a man who oversteps his boundaries. But what if that pristine, official piece of paper confirming Curtis's paternity is nothing more than a fabricated shield? What if the jealousy Curtis is displaying isn't just the insecurity of a man who fears his wife might stray, but the sheer terror of a man who knows she already did, and that the physical proof of that betrayal is currently wrapped in a hospital blanket? Maybe there's another layer here. A layer that completely redefines everything we know about the Ashford family dynamic. If you ask me, I suspect that both Curtis and Portia have known the actual truth for months. I believe that the real DNA test results came back a long time ago, and those results confirmed, without a shadow of a doubt, that Isaiah Gannon is the biological father of Portia's baby. Imagine that moment of discovery. For Portia, who already spent 2 decades hiding Trina's true paternity, history was repeating itself in the most devastating way possible. But for Curtis, a man who prides himself on control, on being the patriarch, on building a legacy, that piece of paper wasn't just a heartbreak. It was a psychological fracture. It's possible that in that exact moment, Curtis Ashford completely broke. Instead of walking away, instead of filing for divorce or demanding public accountability, he chose a much darker path. He chose to erase the truth. I keep wondering whether Curtis himself orchestrated the swapping of the DNA results. He has the connections, the resources, and the sheer willpower to make a piece of paper say whatever he needs it to say. He forced the official record to name him as the father. But erasing the paper trail is the easy part. Erasing the biological father is where the true nightmare begins. The more I think about it, the more Curtis's ongoing irrational hatred for Isaiah makes perfect, terrifying sense. Curtis is not acting like a man who won his wife back. He is acting like a warden guarding a fragile prison. Every time Isaiah walks into a room, Curtis loses his mind because Isaiah's very existence is a ticking time bomb. Curtis's recent attempts to falsely accuse Isaiah of completely unrelated crimes, like suggesting Isaiah was the one who framed Willow Kane for the hit and run, are incredibly telling. Curtis doesn't actually care about Willow's legal troubles. He is simply grasping at any possible excuse to destroy Isaiah, to get him locked up, to get him out of Port Charles, without ever having to reveal the true reason he wants him gone. This leads us to a terrifying possibility about what is happening behind closed doors. What if Curtis didn't just forge a document? What if he issued a monstrous ultimatum? We have to remember that Curtis is not just a nightclub owner with a badge in his past. He is a man who operates in the gray areas of Port Charles. Let's not forget a crucial piece of history. Curtis once actively considered hiring mob boss Selena Wu to target Drew Kane. Even though he ultimately pulled back before the hit could happen, the fact that he was willing to cross that line to use lethal criminal force to solve a problem tells us everything we need to know about his capacity for darkness. It doesn't seem accidental that the writers established that threshold for violence in Curtis's character. If he could consider a mob hit over business and personal grievances, what is he capable of when his entire family, his pride and his marriage are on the line? I believe Curtis backed Portia into a corner from which there is no escape. I believe he looked his wife in the eye and told her that if the truth about Isaiah being the father ever came to light, Isaiah would not live to see the child grow up. He may have threatened to make Isaiah disappear permanently. He may have even threatened the child itself, or Portia, making it abundantly clear that anyone who destroys his image of a perfect family will pay with their life. When you view the story through this lens, Portia's actions take on a chilling new context. She isn't a conflicted woman trying to balance two men. She is a hostage in her own life. When she told Curtis she wanted no direct contact and that he should get updates from the doctors, that wasn't just marital anger. That was a desperate attempt to create physical distance from a man she is absolutely terrified of. She was trying to protect herself and her baby by building a sterile medical wall between them and Curtis. But then the assault happened. Curtis attacked Isaiah, and suddenly Curtis is facing serious criminal charges. A stint in Pentonville is on the table. And what does Portia do? She contemplates changing her testimony to save him. Why? Because she knows that if she sends Curtis to prison, the beast is fully unleashed. A man like Curtis, with his connections, can orchestrate a hit on Isaiah from inside Pentonville just as easily as he can from the Savoy. Portia realizes that testifying against him, even truthfully, could sign Isaiah's death warrant. I can't shake the feeling that Portia is not protecting a lie to save her marriage. She is protecting a lie to save lives. This also completely changes the dynamic with the extended family. We have Marshall Ashford and Stella Henry returning to Port Charles, hovering over Curtis and Portia, constantly pressuring them to do better, to fix their marriage, to be a united front for the sake of the new baby. Imagine the psychological torture this inflicts on Portia. She has to sit there and smile, nodding along with Stella's well-meaning but suffocating advice, all while knowing that the man sitting next to her is holding a metaphorical gun to her head. Stella and Marshall think they are counseling a couple through a rough patch. They have no idea they are demanding that a victim make peace with her captor. As we look toward the upcoming trial where Curtis will face the consequences of his assault on Isaiah, the tension is becoming unbearable. Portia is going to be called to the stand. She will be asked to testify under oath about what happened, about Isaiah's actions, about her husband's state of mind. On the surface, if she defends Curtis, she will look like a loyal wife standing by her man in his darkest hour. She might claim that Isaiah provoked the attack, that Curtis was just defending his family. But we will know the truth. That testimony won't be born of love or loyalty. It will be a script read by a woman who knows that one wrong word will bring the walls crashing down on everyone she loves. What if we're missing something even darker? What if Isaiah himself is starting to put the pieces together? He is a brilliant surgeon, an observant man. He must feel the unnatural lethal heat coming off Curtis every time they are in the same room. He must see the terror hiding behind Portia's exhausted eyes. If Isaiah starts to dig, if he demands his own independent DNA test, he won't just be uncovering a medical fact. He will be triggering a war that could leave Port Charles reeling. Something feels unfinished. The writers have built a powder keg, and they are slowly, methodically laying out the fuse. Curtis Ashford is transforming right in front of our eyes. He is shedding the skin of the righteous, protective father and revealing the cold, calculating scales of a man who will stop at nothing to maintain his illusion of control. He is becoming a villain, not in the cartoonish, mustache-twirling sense, but in the deeply realistic, terrifying way of an abuser who uses fear to bind his family to him. The story of Curtis, Portia, and Isaiah is no longer a simple love triangle or a medical drama. It is a psychological thriller hiding in plain sight. Every shared look, every whispered conversation in the hospital corridors, and every legal maneuver by Martin Gray to keep Curtis out of prison is loaded with a deadly undercurrent. We are watching a tragedy unfold in slow motion. The truth about that baby's DNA is buried deep, but in Port Charles, the truth never stays buried forever. And when this particular secret finally claws its way to the surface, the fallout will not just end a marriage, it has the potential to end lives. We will be right here watching every single move because this is one story that is only just beginning to show its true, terrifying colors.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.